In the annals of scientific inquiry, few experiments cast such a long and at times unsettling shadow as Universe-25. Conducted by the American ethologist Dr. John B. Calhoun during the late 1960s and early 1970s, this ambitious project sought to understand the complex effects of population density on behavior. Calhoun created what appeared to be a paradise for mice. Imagine a specially designed enclosure, a veritable mouse metropolis, shielded from the harsh realities of the outside world. Here, there were no predators to fear, no diseases to decimate their numbers, and a seemingly endless supply of life's essentials. Food and water were always available, offering constant sustenance without the need for struggle or foraging. The physical environment itself was carefully constructed. It was a multi-level habitat, designed to provide ample space, at least initially, for its inhabitants. Nesting materials crucial for comfort and raising young were provided in abundance, ensuring that every mouse could, in theory, create a safe and secure home. The temperature was kept stable, an optimal climate for mouse well-being. Dr. Calhoun's intention was to remove all external pressures, all the typical challenges that a wild mouse population would face. He wanted to observe what would happen when the only potential limitation was the mice themselves and the space they occupied. This was not just an experiment about overcrowding, but about what happens when life becomes perhaps too easy. The initial inhabitants were carefully selected. 4 breeding pairs of healthy mice were introduced into this carefully controlled world. These were the pioneers, the founders of a new society. Their task, biologically speaking, was simple: to thrive and reproduce in this land of plenty. Scientists watched with keen interest, meticulously recording every interaction, every birth, every subtle shift in social dynamics. The hope was to glean insights into how animal societies function, and perhaps, by extension, to understand aspects of our own complex human communities. The premise was straightforward: give a species everything it could materially desire and observe the unfolding drama of its existence. The term Utopia is often associated with this experiment, yet it carries a certain irony given the eventual outcome. For the first generation of mice, it must have indeed seemed like a perfect world. There was no need to compete fiercely for resources or to constantly be on alert for danger. They had, in essence, won a biological lottery. However, this carefully crafted paradise held within its very design the seeds of unforeseen behavioral consequences. The absence of challenge, the sheer abundance, would eventually sculpt the destiny of this burgeoning mouse society in ways that were both fascinating and deeply sobering, providing a stark narrative about the intricacies of social health. The initial phase of Universe-25, often termed the adjustment phase, began as one might expect in such a resource-rich environment. The first few breeding pairs of mice, finding themselves in this bountiful new world, quickly adapted to their surroundings. They explored their new territory, established nesting sites, and crucially began to reproduce. With no external threats and an unlimited supply of food and water, the conditions were perfect for a population explosion. The early generations experienced a period of robust growth, a testament to the ideal living conditions provided by Dr. Calhoun and his team. Life was good, and the mouse society began to flourish, seemingly validating the utopian design. Following this initial settlement, the population entered a period of rapid expansion. Numbers began to double approximately every 55 days, a remarkable rate of growth. During this boom, social structures started to form. Hierarchies emerged, with certain males becoming dominant, claiming prime territories and access to females. This was natural mouse behavior, a pattern observed in many animal societies where resources and mating opportunities are contested. For a time, there was a semblance of order within the enclosure. The mice were busy establishing their roles, raising their young, and navigating the burgeoning complexities of their expanding community. This phase represented the peak of societal function within Universe-25. The population continued its upward trajectory, eventually reaching a peak of over 2,200 individuals around the 560th day of the experiment. The enclosure, though spacious, was becoming increasingly crowded. While resources like food and water remained technically unlimited, the sheer density of individuals meant that social interactions became more frequent and, inevitably, more intense. The original design, which provided everything a mouse could need, was now testing the limits of their social tolerance. The once peaceful and orderly growth started to show the first subtle signs of strain, precursors to the dramatic changes that were to follow. It was a period of apparent success, yet it unknowingly teetered on the brink of profound social disruption. During this phase of exponential growth, the mice exhibited behaviors typical of a healthy, thriving colony. Mothers diligently cared for their pups, males defended their territories, and the young explored and learned within the established social framework. There was a clear purpose to their daily lives: finding mates, raising offspring, and maintaining their place within the social order. This period, however, was transient. The very success of the colony, in terms of numbers, was creating an internal pressure cooker. The abundance that had fueled their growth would soon become a critical factor in the unraveling of their world, challenging the notion that material plenty alone can sustain a healthy society. As the population within Universe-25 reached its zenith, a disturbing transformation began to take hold. Dr. Calhoun termed this phenomenon the behavioral sink, a state where the social fabric of the mouse community started to fray and then completely disintegrate. The once orderly society descended into chaos despite the continued abundance of all physical necessities. The sheer density of mice, even with unlimited food and water, created an environment where normal social behaviors could no longer be sustained. Stress levels, though not directly measured with modern biochemical tools, were visibly manifesting in the altered actions and interactions of the inhabitants. This was the beginning of the end for the mouse utopia. One of the first and most alarming signs of this behavioral sink was a profound breakdown in parental care. Female mice, who in earlier stages had been attentive mothers, began to neglect their young. Many abandoned their litters, while others, even more shockingly, attacked and sometimes killed their own offspring. The maternal instinct, so fundamental to the survival of any species, seemed to evaporate under the pressures of the overcrowded and socially chaotic environment. Males, too, abdicated their traditional roles. They ceased to defend their territories and nests, and many withdrew from the responsibilities of social engagement, contributing to the overall breakdown of family structures within the enclosure. Aggression, once a regulated part of establishing social hierarchy, spiraled out of control. Some males became hyper-aggressive, engaging in violent and often senseless attacks on other mice, including females and juveniles. These were not fights for territory or mates in the traditional sense, but rather expressions of a pervasive social pathology. Conversely, other groups of mice reacted to the overwhelming social stimuli by becoming increasingly passive and withdrawn. The complex rituals of courtship and mating, essential for reproduction, began to break down. Meaningful social interactions were replaced by either violence or a disengaged apathy, painting a grim picture of societal collapse. The environment, designed to be a paradise, had inadvertently created conditions that overwhelmed the mice's capacity for normal social functioning. The constant, unavoidable interaction with too many other individuals led to a kind of social overload. Established roles and behaviors which had provided structure and predictability lost their meaning. The mice were physically healthy, well-fed, and safe from external harm, but their social and psychological well-being was rapidly deteriorating. The dream of a perfect world was turning into a nightmare, driven not by scarcity but by the unforeseen consequences of too much too close for too long. Amidst the escalating chaos and social decay within Universe-25, a peculiar group of male mice emerged, whom Dr. Calhoun tellingly dubbed the beautiful ones. These mice represented a profound form of social withdrawal. They ceased to engage in any meaningful social behaviors typically seen in their species. They did not fight for territory, nor did they show any interest in mating or interacting with females. Instead, their existence became entirely self-centered. Their days were spent grooming their fur, meticulously eating and sleeping. They were physically healthy, often with sleek, well-kept coats, yet they were socially sterile, contributing nothing to the continuation or functioning of the colony. The emergence of these beautiful ones was a stark indicator of the depth of the social malaise. While some of their male counterparts descended into hyper-violence, these individuals opted out of society altogether. They congregated in shared areas, often in the central parts of the enclosure, seemingly oblivious to the turmoil around them. Their passivity was not a sign of peace, but of a complete disengagement from the responsibilities and interactions that define a social species. They were, in essence, living ghosts in the increasingly dysfunctional machine of Universe-25, a testament to the breakdown of purpose and drive, even in the presence of material abundance. Their very existence underscored the catastrophic failure of the mouse society. As these pathological behaviors became widespread, the aggression, the parental failure, the withdrawal of the beautiful ones, the reproductive capacity of the colony plummeted. Females who did conceive often failed to carry their pregnancies to term, or their offspring died shortly after birth due to neglect or violence. The few young mice that did survive into adulthood were born into an environment of unprecedented social dysfunction. These individuals, having never experienced normal social interactions or role models, were themselves often socially inept and unable to engage in healthy reproductive behaviors, even if they were later moved to less stressful environments. The cycle of social collapse was becoming self-perpetuating. Ultimately, the combination of low birth rates, high infant mortality, and pervasive social dysfunction led to the inevitable decline and extinction of the Universe-25 colony. Reproduction eventually ceased altogether. The last surviving mice lived out their days in the decaying Utopia, a silent, sterile world that had once pulsed with vibrant life. The experiment, which began with such promise, ended in a profound silence. Dr. Calhoun's findings provided a chilling narrative. A society, even one provided with every material need, can wither and die if its social cohesion, its purpose, and its fundamental behavioral patterns are eroded beyond repair. The beautiful ones were a symptom of a society that had lost its way, consuming without creating, existing without truly living. Section 5, a mirror to modernity, abundance without true purpose. So you see, Dr. Calhoun's Universe-25 experiment, though it was conducted on mice, has often been invoked as a potential metaphor for trends we observe in modern human societies, especially those societies characterized by, unprecedented material abundance. The core argument that really resonates is the idea that societal collapse within the mouse utopia didn't stem from scarcity or external threats, but rather from internal dysfunctions that were exacerbated by ease and a lack of meaningful challenge. In many developed nations today, we see unparalleled levels of material wealth, technological convenience, and access to resources. Food is plentiful, shelter is generally available, and many of the raw survival struggles that defined human existence for millennia have been significantly mitigated for a large portion of the population. This abundance, while offering comfort and security, can also, some argue, lead to a kind of spiritual or existential vacuum. When basic needs are effortlessly met, the drive for purpose and meaning can become less urgent or perhaps more confusing to define. In Universe-25, the mice, freed from the need to forage or defend against predators, eventually lost the behaviors associated with these struggles, behaviors that also underpin their social structures and reproductive drives. The parallel question for human society becomes, if our struggles are lessened, do we risk a similar erosion of the very things that give life meaning, such as strong communities, purposeful work, and investment in future generations? Now consider the concept of the behavioral sink in human terms. While direct comparisons are complex, one might observe parallels in phenomena like social isolation despite hyperconnectivity, or a sense of anomie, a feeling of normlessness and detachment even within affluent societies. The beautiful ones in the mouse experiment, who withdrew into self-grooming and passivity, find their supposed human counterparts in individuals who might retreat from real-world responsibilities and relationships into virtual worlds, excessive self-focus, or consumerism without deeper satisfaction. The ease of access to entertainment and gratification, devoid of genuine effort or connection, could be seen as a modern echo of the mice's effortless existence, leading to disengagement. The critical insight from Universe-25, when applied metaphorically to humans, is not that abundance itself is inherently bad, but that abundance without a corresponding framework of purpose, responsibility, and meaningful engagement can be perilous. The mice lacked the cognitive capacity to create new purposes when their old ones became obsolete. Humans, on the other hand, possess the ability for self-reflection, cultural transmission, and the conscious pursuit of meaning beyond mere survival. The experiment serves as a cautionary tale, urging us to consider how we cultivate purpose and maintain social vitality in an age where material wants are increasingly met with ease, lest we too find ourselves in a gilded cage of our own making. Section 6. Societal Echoes, Fractured Families and Shifting Roles. The breakdown of family structures and traditional roles observed so starkly in Universe-25 offers a disquieting lens through which some commentators view contemporary human societal trends. In the mouse utopia, maternal instincts waned, with females abandoning or even attacking their young, while males relinquished their roles in protecting nests and providing social stability. When we look at certain trends in human societies, such as rising divorce rates, the normalization of single-parent households, often through circumstance rather than choice, and a perception that parenting is sometimes viewed as an optional or overly burdensome lifestyle choice rather than a fundamental societal contribution, some draw parallels to the dysfunction seen in Calhoun's enclosure. The experiment documented a chaotic shift in sexual behaviors among the mice, with random, often aggressive, and ultimately non-procreative encounters becoming common. This has been compared to human trends, where for some, sexuality may become increasingly decoupled from long-term commitment, responsibility, or the intention of forming stable family units. Concerns about rising rates of teenage pregnancies in some areas, alongside the complexities of widespread access to abortion, are sometimes framed within this narrative of a broader shift in how society approaches procreation and the responsibilities tied to it, echoing the mice's confused and ultimately sterile interactions in the later stages of Universe-25. Universe-25 also saw dramatic shifts in what could be termed gendered behaviors among the mice. Some female mice became unusually aggressive, taking on roles and behaviors not typically observed, while many males, like the beautiful ones, withdrew into passivity, or others became indiscriminately violent. This is controversially paralleled by some to perceived shifts in human gender roles, where modern women are often encouraged towards traditionally masculine traits of competitiveness and assertiveness in professional spheres, while some argue that traditional masculine assertiveness is increasingly discouraged or pathologized. The concern raised is whether this leads to a societal imbalance rather than a harmonious integration of diverse strengths, mirroring the dysfunctional social dynamics of the mice. Furthermore, the confusion of roles and the breakdown of established behavioral patterns in Universe-25 are sometimes linked to contemporary discussions around gender identity and fluidity. As the mouse society disintegrated, so too did the predictable patterns of interaction between males and females that were essential for reproduction. Proponents of this comparison point to a perceived surge in gender dysphoria and the proliferation of non-binary identities in human society as a sign of similar social disorientation, suggesting that a loss of clear societal roles and meanings might contribute to individual confusion, much like the mice lost their behavioral anchors in their collapsing world. These interpretations are, of course, highly debated and complex, far exceeding simple animal analogies. Section 7. The Paradox of Plenty, Declining Births, and a Search for Meaning. One of the most striking outcomes of the Universe-25 experiment was the eventual cessation of reproduction. The mice, living in a world of material abundance, ultimately lost the will or ability to procreate, leading to the colony's extinction. This particular aspect of the study often draws comparisons to declining birth rates observed in many developed human nations. Across numerous affluent countries, fertility rates have fallen below replacement levels, meaning that populations are or will soon be shrinking without significant immigration. This demographic shift occurs despite unprecedented access to healthcare, nutrition, and economic security, creating a paradox of plenty where survival is assured, but the drive to create future generations appears to diminish. The fear or reluctance surrounding parenting, sometimes expressed in modern discourse, can be seen as a human echo of the mice's reproductive failure. In Universe-25, the chaotic and stressful social environment made successful parenting nearly impossible. while human reasons are far more complex, involving economic pressures, career aspirations, personal fulfillment choices, and anxieties about the future. Some argue that a societal environment perceived as overly demanding, uncertain, or lacking in communal support can make the prospect of raising children seem daunting. The mice had everything they needed materially, but lacked the stable social structure essential for nurturing new life. Humans may have material goods, but perceive a lack of other essential supports or a compelling enough why. The core of Universe-25's tragedy was not resource scarcity, but an overabundance that, paradoxically, led to a kind of existential lethargy and social decay. The mice had no need to strive, no challenges to overcome to ensure their survival or the survival of their offspring. This lack of meaningful struggle, some suggest, eroded their very essence. In human terms, this can be likened to a society where materialism provides for every conceivable comfort, yet may lead to a spiritual or existential starvation. If life's primary purpose is reduced to consumption and the pursuit of fleeting pleasures without a deeper sense of contribution or legacy, the motivation to invest in the demanding long-term project of raising a family can wane. The experiment starkly highlighted that guaranteed survival, devoid of purpose or the need for meaningful action, can be a path towards decline. For the mice, this meant literal extinction. For humans, the implications are more nuanced but equally profound. Are we, in our pursuit of comfort and ease, inadvertently creating conditions that diminish our vitality, our sense of collective purpose, and our commitment to the future? The question posed by Universe-25 is whether a society can thrive solely on material inputs or whether it requires a constant infusion of meaning, challenge, and shared responsibility to maintain its vigor and ensure its continuity through generations to come. Section 8. Beyond the enclosure, nuance, criticism, and human complexity. While the narrative of Universe-25 is compelling and offers provocative parallels, it is crucial to approach its interpretation with nuance and acknowledge the criticisms leveled against the study. Dr. Calhoun's work was deeply influenced by the prevailing anxieties of his time, particularly fears of global overpopulation, a theme popularized by thinkers like Thomas Malthus and Paul Ehrlich. The stark, dystopian outcome of the mouse experiment resonated powerfully in an era grappling with the implications of a rapidly growing human population and its potential impact on resources and societal stability. This historical context is important when considering the lens through which the results were initially viewed and disseminated. One significant criticism of the experiment is its direct applicability to human beings. Humans are not mice. Our social structures, cognitive abilities, and capacity for cultural adaptation are vastly more complex. While mice respond to environmental pressures in relatively instinctual ways, human behavior is shaped by intricate layers of culture, ethics, conscious choice, and abstract thought. Follow-up studies on human populations living in crowded conditions have not consistently shown the same inevitable negative outcomes, suggesting that humans possess greater coping mechanisms and the ability to create social and psychological adaptations to mitigate the stresses of density. We can innovate, create new social norms, and find meaning in diverse ways. Furthermore, aspects of the experimental design itself have been questioned. Some modern interpretations suggest that the setup, which allowed aggressive mice to control significant territory and resources, effectively created artificial overcrowding and intense social pressure in other areas of the enclosure. This, rather than sheer numbers alone, might have been a primary driver of the behavioral sink. It's also noted that Calhoun himself conducted other experiments where different environmental designs or opportunities for mice to exhibit innovative behaviors seemed to mitigate some of the negative effects of density, indicating that outcomes were not universally predetermined even for mice. Ethical considerations regarding the distress caused to the animals are also a valid part of the discussion surrounding Universe-25. The experiment, by its nature, subjected the mice to conditions that led to severe social breakdown and suffering. While such studies provided data, modern ethical standards for animal research are more stringent. Moreover, the study was largely observational, and while Calhoun meticulously documented behaviors, it lacked quantitative measurements of stress hormones or other physiological markers that could provide deeper insights into the mice's internal states. These limitations mean that while Universe-25 is a fascinating and cautionary tale, it should be seen as one piece of a much larger puzzle when considering human societal dynamics. In Section 9, Charting a Different Course Lessons, Hope and Responsibility, the sobering saga of Universe-25, while focused on a mouse colony, ultimately serves as a powerful allegory that invites deep reflection on our own human trajectory. The most significant difference between us and the inhabitants of Calhoun's enclosure is our capacity for conscious thought, foresight, and the ability to choose our path. Unlike the mice, who were subjects of their instinct and environment, humans can analyze past mistakes, understand complex systems, and make deliberate decisions to alter their course. The story of Universe-25 need not be a prophecy for humanity, but rather a lesson from which we can derive wisdom and motivation for positive change. One proposed avenue for course correction, drawing from various philosophical and spiritual traditions, involves restoring a sense of the sacred to fundamental aspects of human life, particularly family and community. If marriage and parenting are viewed not merely as lifestyle choices or social contracts, but as profound responsibilities with a spiritual dimension, it could foster deeper commitment and resilience. Similarly, re-evaluating gender roles not as arenas for competition, but as complementary expressions of human potential, seeking a divine balance rather than an imposed sameness or hierarchical struggle, could lead to more harmonious societal structures. This involves celebrating the unique strengths that all individuals bring to the collective. Practices that cultivate inner discipline, stillness, and a strong sense of purpose, such as those found in traditions like Ashtanga Yoga or the concept of tapas, austerity or focused effort, are also suggested as antidotes to the enemy of effortless abundance. By building inner fortitude and clarity, individuals may become less susceptible to the superficial allure of constant distraction or passive consumption. Valuing meaning over mere pleasure and allowing a sense of purpose to guide our actions and our consumption habits can reorient society towards more fulfilling and sustainable goals. This involves a conscious shift from asking "what can I get?" to "what can I contribute?" Ultimately, Universe-25 issues a profound challenge to ensure that our material progress does not outpace our moral and spiritual development. It calls us to raise children not with fear or a sense of limitation, but with a vision of their potential as builders, innovators, and compassionate contributors to the world. The choice, as some interpretations suggest, is whether we succumb to the passivity of the beautiful ones, merely consuming and existing, or whether we rise to our potential as thinking, feeling, and acting beings who can shape a future defined by purpose, connection, and a thriving human spirit. The legacy of Universe-25 is not one of despair, but a powerful reminder of our agency and our responsibility to build a world worthy of human aspiration.